Yo, what's up, Michigan? And welcome to the final episode of Hangtime for the 2023-2024 season. Now, know that this is not the last program, meaning that we'll be back to give you a recap of what happens at the state championships. We call that show State Champs at the State Finals. That will be coming out later, after the state finals. But right now, we have to get ourselves into what took place at the quarters and give you a preview of what's going to happen at the state semifinals in boys basketball. Scott Burnstein, TJ Kelley here to give you all the information you want to know. But first off, gentlemen, I want to start with the 43rd winner of the Hal Schramm Mr. Basketball Award, Port Huron Northern's Tyler Jamison, and it wasn't even close. You know, he earned 445 of the 1,186 first place votes cast. And just so that our audience knows, BCAM members are required to vote for 3 candidates. Points are awarded on a 5-3-1 basis. So Jamison finished with 3,058 points, followed by Curtis Williams of Birmingham Brother Rice, who had 2,004, so over 1,000 difference. Grand Rapids Catholic Central's Caden Brown had 1,900, Sonny Wilson almost 1,900, 1,883, and North Farmington's Ryan Hurst at 1,811.
Whatever you think of the result, and hats off to Tyler Jamison, because it is incredibly deserving. I mean, he's someone that, if you're going to go down the line of things that you want in a Mr. Basketball, it's cliche, but he checks every box. But before I throw it over to TJ, and I'm interested in his take on this comment I'm about to make, and you, this is just definitely one of the most intriguing Mr. Basketball races in my memory. But I don't know if strange is the word, and that's no disrespect to Tyler. I've never seen a race kind of play out the way it played out here. And I'm sure there are a lot of different factors into it. And I just think this is something that we'll be talking about like 10, 20 years. You remember that 2023 season where everybody was like, seemed like they were so neck and neck, even, and we never knew who, and then Tyler emerged from it. But I definitely, and this is again no disrespect to Tyler and having nothing to do with what he did, because what he did was so deserving of the award. I don't know if when we heard the nominees, I would have initially said, "Oh, Tyler's going to win the award."
And again,
and it has more to do with the way that I think that the voting blocks coalesced. But in this case, I think the voting block coalesced in his direction, as opposed to the way it has in the past, where a lot of the West Side guys will get all the votes and then the Metro Detroit guys will kind of cannibalize each other. I think here, Tyler got most of the votes that weren't in Metro Detroit, and there was enough of them to put him head and heels above the Metro Detroit.
Let me say 2 things before TJ goes on. Number 1, he had a great video. So they have videos that they produce and they put together so that the voters can see what they've done. Obviously, he's got a career of great video and they put on a nice presentation, and that does weigh voters when they look at those. Number 2, his university of choice certainly had a good weekend last weekend. So
FDU.
For those who hadn't heard of Farley Dickinson until last Friday, as they destroyed a lot of brackets, including mine. That is where Mr. Jamison is at.
Hey, well, Coach Tobin's moving on and taking the Ionia job, so and I talked to Dad.
That is true.
So I talked to Pop. I talked to Papa Jamison, his coach. He's still going to be staying at Fairleigh Dickinson. They hired one of the assistant coaches, and he wound up getting a phone call from Coach Tobin as well as the new head coach. So they don't have to worry about rearranging anything. And I'd like to say that if he were to have decommitted, I think that Mr. Basketball Award would have kind of brought on a lot of people in to watch him play. Now, I've watched Tyler. I remember, if I can go back right before the last games that I watched in COVID, I went up to Port Huron to watch this freshman play. And it was pretty good. And Ryan Rollins was up there, or they were going to play each other at Macomb or something like that right afterwards. And so that's why that game sticks out to me. Me knowing Jamison. You go back to April last year, the first game of the certified events. He winds up busting his ankle. Was on the sidelines until early August. And for him to put together that season, I just think it's kind of like a whirlwind what's going on in the last 11 months for him, to saying, my dreams are shattered along with my ankle. My recruitment is in shambles. But then to go out there and do what he did, have a great season. I mean, he was phenomenal in the Motor City Roundball Classic and his win versus Ann Arbor Skyline. But I think that the other thing, what his dad did and what coaches are starting to do, especially with the 2 extra games, is they're starting to put their guys in places where they can be seen by numerous other coaches, by voters. You know, and that's in a lot of the showcase events. You know, I would have thought that Caden Brown might have finished second. You know, all right, Tyler finishes first. I would have thought that Caden Brown would have finished second. And I never thought that there'd be a 1,000-point difference between, you know, the winner and number 2.
And if I want to know
Sonny Wilson wound up winning Gatorade Player of the Year. So I think that, I mean, it's one of those things. You go ask 5 different people what your favorite movie is, and you get 5 different answers.
I want to know what would have happened if Brother Rice didn't get bounced in the district. I know there wasn't a ton of time in between that and when the votes were finalized, but I'd be interested because Curtis did finish second. Curtis Williams going to Louisville.
But Northern lost in the districts too.
Right. No, I know.
So
you had 3 guys right there.
But Tyler, in all due respect to Curtis, Tyler's stats trump Curtis's stats. I mean, Tyler was a machine. I mean, every time he's on the floor, you can just 30 points, 15 rebounds. You know, perfect for the free throw line. Takes charge. You know,
absolutely. Okay.
Leads.
At the end of the day, congratulations to him. You know,
absolutely. And
but
we're gonna see what he does at the next.
Is he the first player from Port Huron to win Mr. Basketball?
Without a doubt.
I believe he is.
Yeah. The next closest person I think would be. Shoot, I couldn't even.
I think
tell
the Zuloff brothers, who went on to play at Michigan State with Steve Smith, I know were in the. Well, for people that are basketball historians, I believe they made the top 6, 7, or 8. And that's off the top of my head.
J.P. Oosterbaum also finished in the top 10 in the Mr. Basketball ranking.
But he wasn't from Port Huron.
And walk on in Michigan. No.
He wasn't a Port Huron.
I know, you're just bringing up crazy names and stuff like
that. I was just throwing them out there because they came from Port Huron.
I like J.P. Oosterbaum is one of those names I always remembered from when I was a kid, trying to enunciate that stuff at 8 or 9 years old. But we'll move on.
We will move on. Let's get into our state quarterfinals recap. What we're going to do here is I'm going to tell you the clips of what you can see all over the State Champs Sports Network right now. Find State Champs Michigan on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok for clips and coverage of these games. I'm not going to mention all the quarterfinals games, but we will mention them when we talk about the preview of the state semifinals, which we'll do at the end of the show. First off, in Division I, the games we covered: Cass Tech over Ann Arbor Huron, 55-49. Grand Blanc over Rochester Adams, 64-44. Orchard Lake St. Mary's beats De La Salle, 55-44. In Division II, we covered Ferndale over Goodrich, 71-66, the final in that one. And Grand Rapids South Christian continues to roll. They knock out a very hot Hudsonville Unity Christian team. They win 61-38. In Division III, we were all over Flint Beecher getting it done, beating Detroit Loyola 55-49. And also in Division IV, Marine City Cardinal Mooney beats Taylor Trillium 59-55. They are moving to the Breslin for only the second time in their program's history. So first off, any comments on those games that will start with you, TJ?
Yeah, well, I think the experience has a lot to do with some of these wins. Ferndale, if you look at them on paper, definitely not. They don't have that go-to Division I score like they've had in the past. Now, I just think that you have a whole bunch of guys that were hungry, lost their sophomore year, lost their junior year. Now it's really their time to shine. And so, hey, hats off to the guys that are taking advantage of their opportunities in Ferndale. Grand Rapids South Christian getting it done. Taylor Johnson, first-year coach, was at Grand Valley State for a while under Rick Wesley. So when Carson Viss winds up busting both of his wrists off of I don't know what you call a dirty play or whatever, you're going in for a break and then kind of undercut him. I don't know if you've seen the video, but he winds up falling on both of his wrists. And now good luck texting and all that stuff for playing video games, for the next couple of months. But for Grand Rapids Christian to go out there and do what they did, South Christian, excuse me. Yeah, don't want to get those two confused. Exactly. The hand showed up. They've had quite a few other guys that really stepped up.
They played unbelievable.
Yeah. Sam Niedendorf, let me bring up that name. He's their goalie. For South Christian at 6'6", 6'7", but extremely long, thin. But he's another guy as a senior who really stepped up for South Christian.
I'm just going to touch on the obvious here. What Orchard Lake St. Mary's is doing is quite miraculous. This is a historic run they're making. The irony for people that have been paying attention to the St. Mary's program is just mind-boggling that they had teams that were, 3 teams in recent memory that were nationally ranked in the top 25 in the country.
Yeah.
And they couldn't get out of the quarterfinals and make it to Breslin. And this team, which obviously has Trey McKinney, the best player in the state, pound for pound, he's only a sophomore, but all due respect, this team doesn't hold a candle in the top to bottom, the pound for pound stack up to, I would say, probably 30 or 40 St. Mary's teams over history. But Trey McKinney is so good, he is so special that it doesn't matter. He's the ultimate equalizer. And that's no disrespect to Andrew Smith and Bugsy Smythe and Mason Wisniewski and Sherrod Barnes, who are all doing an amazing job playing their parts. But the reason that this team, I think, is going to go win a state championship after finishing the season 10-10 is because Trey McKinney is having one of the most amazing tournament runs in our state's history, and he's doing against the best possible competition. Yeah. He's averaging 30 a night in this playoff run, and the gauntlet that the St. Mary's Eaglets have had to run, I can't think of a 2-3 week tournament effort that matches what I'm seeing from Trey McKinney right now.
Brother Rice, UD Jesuit, North Farmington, De La Salle.
Yeah, well, I had Brother Rice finishing number 1 in the end of my rankings. North Farmington finished number 3. You want to, they'd also be UD Jesuit, who was a top 10. And then you have North Farmington, then you have De La Salle, who's, the defending state champions. And I'm with you, Scott. I'm like literally struggling to find where a team has gone and done that and do this. And if you look at
especially in Division I,
especially Division I. But if you look at younger guys, obviously we've had Amani Bates, but what he went through at Ypsi Lincoln was nothing in comparison.
Yeah,
to what Trey McKinney has done. And I'll also say this: yesterday he came out and was gangbusters, like three. And it's
efficient. He's scoring 30. He ain't taking 30 shots.
Yep. And I'm sitting with a college coach, and he tells me he shoots the ball like he's in practice.
Yeah.
And it's just like boom, repetition after repetition. Everything looks the same. I think that some of those, let's say this ill-advised shots that we maybe saw him take as a freshman and sophomore, now those shots, he's worked on those and those are dropping.
Yeah.
He's raising up it from the elbow, from 16 feet, from the, he's pretty efficient from the 3-point line. Yeah. And he's definitely the thing is, you game plan for Trey McKinney, and he's still going to come out there and give you buckets.
The difference between last year and this year is the consistency of his outside jumper. Yeah. Last year it was hit or miss, and it was a little herky-jerky, but he worked on it. He worked on his craft over the summer, and now it is cash money.
Right.
I mean, he hits nothing but net.
Right.
And then the only other person that I could think of that had a run like this in recent memory was Foster Lawyer, where he had, he averaged 30 through the tournament, but they were routing their way. Yeah. They didn't really play many people in those tournament runs.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So that's the difference.
And to put a bow on that, they've got Muskegon, and we're going to talk about the semifinal. Yeah. They've got Muskegon next, our former number 1 team in the state from this year. Nobody's talking about Muskegon, one of the best teams in the state, clearly.
Yes.
If they win that game and face either Cass Tech or Grand Blanc and win that and somehow can pull off a championship, I can't think of a tougher run for a team that was not expected to do much at all. They'll be celebrated probably as one of the hardest working, best champions that you could possibly have.
Obviously their record we've never had a Division I or Class A team that's been 500 in the regular season and wind up winning a state championship.
Football's the only sport we've seen that.
Hey, but hats off to what Coach Culvert's been able to do under the duress of what's my roster going to look like.
We don't need to talk about. We've talked about that.
But we got plenty to talk about on Friday and Saturday.
It's a huge factor, and the fact that these guys got so focused after all the nonsense with the eligibility of players that are no longer aren't in the rotation. They'll play next year. But nothing about that took them backwards. Everything about that propelled them forward.
Fuel for the fire, no doubt about it. All right, we're going to swing now to our final Chalk Talk of the season, sponsored by BCAM. Had a chance to talk to Mike McAndrews, one of the best coaches out there in high school, who is a lifer at Marine City Cardinal Mooney, and they are now back into the state semifinals for only the second time in the program's history, first time since 2010. Here's a little bit from that conversation. Trent Rice with 32 points in the victory. Talk about his performance, what he means to your team.
Yeah, I mean, he was outstanding. He was the best player on the court last night, and he is most nights for us. You know, people that don't know our program or don't follow us, you know, being from a smaller school, if they didn't think Trent Rice was an all-state player before this last week, they certainly do now. He's been a 4-year varsity player for us, scored over 1,000 points. He's probably the best pure athlete I've ever had in my program in 25 years. A Division I baseball commit. But a really good basketball player. If he wasn't playing baseball in college, he'd be playing basketball.
All right, so a great conversation. If you want to check out the entire interview, and I really hope you do, go to State Champs Michigan or State Champs Network on YouTube. You can catch the entire interview there. It'll be loaded up at statechampsnetwork.com right there on the homepage. You can also find it on Facebook. You can listen to the audio-only podcast version on Spreaker. So go check that out, and all you got to do is look up State Champs Sports. Great guy. A guy you played against.
Yeah, I played against him in the 90s. Without question, I know I'm a little biased. Without question, he is the most underrated small school basketball coach for the boys in the state of Michigan. You know, you said 2 times that this program has ever gone to the Final Four. Yeah. Well, McAndrews has been at the helm both those 2 times.
Yep.
Just everything you want from someone to lead a program. And the McAndrews Everhart name is synonymous with Marine City, Cardinal Mooney basketball. Yeah. Susie Everhart, the great girls basketball coach, has had some of her sons come through her brother's program recently. Right now, Brian Everhart, who's a junior, is one of the linchpins. Trent Rice is a superstar.
32 points on Tuesday night.
And I guess we can get into this when we're predicting, but I know Mike McAndrews. I was in the building when his high school career ended, lost in triple overtime in a crazy game when he was a senior. And I think he's making up for it in these runs that he's put together. And I think this year that run could end with a state title.
You know what? Sometimes you look at the sentimental, or let's say this is a story behind the story. You know, he just lost his father not long ago, who's been on the sidelines, been his right-hand man. Like a confidant, and I think the emotions that McAndrews showed in the win yesterday, it was beautiful to see that spill out, because it's tears of joy. It's look at me, Dad. This one's for you. And I think that sometimes when you just have that wave of emotion, sometimes that has a way of it's contagious, and it winds up carrying on to wins. And I think that definitely Cardinal Mooney, what they did with Taylor Trillium, and we talked about Fishburne.
I mean, Demarion Fishburne, if you don't know about him, go check out the highlights.
He's one of those guys that he's going to wind up going to junior college, he's going to go to a small college, or he's going to go into a prep school or whatever. But he's a name that you're going to hear 2 or 3 years down the road, because he's going to wind up picking the right level, and he's going to wind up being a standout there, or otherwise he's going to be one of those guys where we talk about, like with Micah Parrish, well, I didn't have any offers coming out of my senior year, and all of a sudden he's wind up helping the team, wind up going to the Sweet 16 or something like that at 6'5" and ball skills, But yeah, hats off, to Trillium for a great year. But yeah, Cardinal Mooney's been fantastic. But yeah, Keeler over on that other side of the bracket,
Picture tells a million words, and the last thing I'll say about this is, after the game and playing on what TJ said, Mike McAndrews ran over to his brother, Jim McAndrews, who was actually his coach in high school. So when I played against Cardinal Mooney, it was Jim McAndrews on the bench, Mike McAndrews running the point. And they embraced for a good minute or so. And I know that they were thinking about their father. And to see them come together in that moment, and I know Susie was around there too, just a great day for the McAndrews Everhart family, and remembering Pops McAndrews from above. And just, I loved when I saw that image of the two of them embracing.
And the capper, it was his birthday.
Yes.
Really? On Tuesday night, McAndrews' birthday. So what a gift. He gets to go back to the Breslin, and we'll see what
got to the finals. Got to the finals in
2010. Yep, got to the finals.
So they won that. He's won a game at Breslin.
Yep, absolutely. All right, guys, we're gonna wrap up the show with our state semifinals preview, and then we'll do a quick prediction for who these guys will believe can be the ultimate champions. But we'll start. Let's start backwards. We'll start in Division 4 since that's where we were. We know that on Thursday night, Munising and Cardinal Mooney get together at 5:30. Frankfurt and Tri-Unity Christian at 7:30. And again, for a team like Tri-Unity Christian, this is where experience always comes to the forefront.
Well, Frankfurt's been there a few times
That's
as
true.
well. So
yeah.
if you look in the last 15 years, Munising is the one that the odd party out in this battle. And I think we've talked about just the experience of being at the Breslin, especially how important it is for coaches kind of be able to quell their players and be like, all right, breathe in, breathe out. This is what's going to happen. Don't get caught up in the crowd. But yeah, I definitely expect to see Tri-Unity versus Cardinal Mooney. Hey, Keeler just has a way of getting things done. I'm looking at the stat sheets from last year's semifinal and the final. And I mean, nobody else is coming even close to 10 points when you've got Brady Titus out there who's putting up 30, 35 and stuff like that. And so for him to have the horses in the cabinet, for this year's run, it's one of those things where that's where programs are built. And Keeler obviously has been doing that for the last 30, well into the 20th century. Let me say it like that.
In Division 3, the semifinals on Thursday will be Flint Beecher and E-Course. That's a noon matchup, very intriguing game. Traverse City St. Francis continues to roll as they'll take on Niles Brandywine at 2 o'clock.
I think this is E-Course's year, and I think Olafoy, Marast, and Gerard Abram on the bench are going to. I think last week I said that this entire tournament is kind of like the chip on your shoulder tournament. Right. Whether it's for Malik at E-Course, whether it's Orchard Lake St. Mary's in Division 1, RJ Taylor at Grand Blanc, a lot of guys that are out there to try to prove something more than just winning the title. So I think E-Course is going to pull the upset. I would, if I was doing a handicapping of it, I'd say Beecher is the favorite. But I think E-Course is going to pull the upset and end up winning the state.
Well, I'll say this. I'm going to go with Beecher in this just because I think that Beecher takes care of the ball. I watched the game online last night, their win versus Detroit Loyola. Those guys, they have so many players on their team who think like coaches. Marquise Gray, obviously a standout, in the Flint area at Michigan State. I'm in a mountain of a man. But there were certain plays that they had to beat Detroit Loyola where it was like, hey, that spidey senses that those Beecher players have where they were just like, hey, that a quick raise of a left eyebrow and stuff like that means I'm going that way.
Breslin
and so
Beecher,
you get easy layups. And I think that if E-Course is going to win that game, they can't have more than a dozen turnovers in that game.
Yeah.
And if they have anything more than that, which Beecher is prone to.
Yeah, Malik and Kenny are going to have to play under control and limit the mistakes and take advantage of mistakes they can force Beecher into because, as you're pointing out, I mean, Breslin is like Beecher's second home floor. Yep. They're very accustomed to playing under the bright lights. And
12 or 13 years. But you bring up some of the other unsigned seniors. I look at Robert Lee. Robert Lee is another one of those guys. I'm watching him play. You remember Jaron Holmes, Jaron English when he was here, played at Grosse Pointe Liggett, but wound up going to prep school, wound up getting an injury, also played at Romulus, playing prep school, wound up going to St. Bonaventure and having success. Now he's at Iowa State. And even though he's an old senior, there's so much that Robert Lee, they have length, they have good size, toughness, and yes, I think that Robert Lee is, if I'm a GLIAC school, I'm all over him just because he brings winning. You know what his culture is going to bring, and that's what everybody strives for, and that's to win. And I think that Rob Lee is another guy to look for, but yeah, Beecher is definitely.
And I'll give one shout out to Traverse City St. Francis. They almost won by 30 over St. Ignace. Yep. So they are rolling in. Niles Brandywine put up 71, beat Pewaukee Westphalia, another perennial team it seems like we were seeing at the Breslin Center. They win by 9-70. So both teams put up points in the 70s. That should be a high-scoring affair. In Division 2, based on Saginaw taking care of Cadillac 61-57, and Ferndale beating Goodrich 71-66. Those two will meet in the Division 2 semifinal at 5:30 on Thursday, and it is South Christian taking on a Romulus Summit Academy North team that beats Chelsea by 6, 68-62.
We talked about this pre-show. So I get a phone call from a coach at South Christian, and I was like, your opponent, the coach at Romulus Summit knows South Christian very, very well, and that being Mark White. Yes. We've had the top 20 rankings. State champs is at 20 years. Yep. We go back 20 years ago, and we've got David Kuhl versus Malik Hairston and Joe Crawford. South Christian versus Renaissance, but more importantly, that'd be Mark White. So now it's one of those things. Do we get to see that rivalry kind of get back? And again, you have Ferndale, who I love this semifinal. I love the semifinals in this, and I think that does Ferndale wind up getting is it their year? I think that they have the horses where they can beat they're battle tested and they can beat some teams and also
Saginaw talk about final year
and Saginaw.
So they've got that story behind it.
No, and I would love to see Julian Taylor
huge
wind up winning the state championship as well.
Right. Yeah. Well, and for just to shout out Juan Rickman, who's the coach at Ferndale. I said Mike McAndrews, most underrated small school coach. Well, Juan Rickman could be, pound for pound, the most underrated coach in the MHSAA with what he does on a consistent basis, the way his team plays, the motor his team displays, the execution, the fact that they can, take a punch and withstand it. Just an amazing job he's done coming over to Ferndale from East English Village. I know he was a point guard himself at Cass Tech, I believe in the 90s. And just
20th century.
Just does such an amazing job with this Ferndale program. I can't say enough about Juan Rickman. And this year,
and they have experience,
right? And this year, but just like TJ already pointed out, but just like the St. Mary's teams, where you're like, okay, this is a team that's actually going to win the state, but they don't. Right. And I'm not taking anything away from this team. This team is still really good, but out of all the teams that he's put out there, this might be the least heralded, and they might be the one that do the most.
That actually
they really don't have a Division I player, or anybody with the Division I offers. And you talk about DeJulius, and you talk about some of the other guys that they've had.
A lot of hardworking kids.
Trey Lewis and Jason Drake. They've had the talent.
All right.
Yep.
All right. Good. Let's move on. We want to kind of wrap this thing up as quickly as we can. Division I, got to talk about. On Friday, March 24th, Cass Tech Grand Blanc get going at noon. And then you've got Orchard Lake St. Mary's taking on a Muskegon team that took care of East Lansing 59-43 on Tuesday in the quarterfinals. That semifinal at 2 o'clock.
Well, I think that Cass Tech they need their defense, full court pressure. They're going to look to turn you over. Now you're asking R.J. Taylor to turn the ball over, and that's like putting a hula hoop through a Cheerio. But that's going to be kind of tough to wind up. And not only that, Grand Blanc has that experience. Right. I know at Callahan Hall yesterday, there were so many people that were saying, we want Cass Tech versus Orchard Lake St. Mary's. We want Darius Acuff versus Trey McKinney.
Two best.
Orchard Lake St. Mary's still has to get by Muskegon.
It's going to be hard.
I tell you what, Muskegon.
It's a tough mountain to climb.
You talk about guards that can handle the ball. They can beat you in many different ways. They have multi-sport athletes, guys that get it done on a football field, guys that have done it on a basketball court.
Grand Blanc coach, another 20-year record.
Yes. Now we get to talk about that David Kuhl South Christian stuff. Right. And Torrey Jackson finished third to the Motors or in the Mr. Basketball. And I remember vividly some of the questions that were asked. And I know that Torrey thought that he should have wound up winning that 2005 Mr. Basketball or 2006 Mr. Basketball. And so I imagine there'll be a field of questions that will be ready on Friday. And you get to ask, hey, R.J. Taylor, hey, Torrey, is there anything? I know you guys have had discussions about Mr. Basketball because, we started off the beginning of the year. I was thinking R.J. Taylor was going to wind up winning.
Yeah.
And so you talk about things to prove. Tay Boyd. Is a bad dude. He's a bad dude. Leading scorer for them yesterday.
Man. Whether you're talking on the football field or the basketball court, this guy is a force of nature.
Yeah, I would say this: get your tickets early if you're going to try to get to that Division I and have a good seat.
What I'll say about Division I, and I'm not dismissing Cass Tech, and I'm not dismissing Grand Blanc because they're two great programs, but I see the winner of St. Mary's Muskegon winning the state championship. If St. Mary's can overcome Muskegon, they're just a team of destiny, and they're going to win no matter what.
Right. Too much momentum.
Muskegon, on the other hand, is just flown under the radar all year, letting you want to talk about Caden Brown and Catholic Central, fine. You want to talk about Tyler Jamison or Sonny, or we'll just kind of sit here, lying in the shadows.
Played a great schedule,
and they have the experience. They have great guard play, great coaching.
Yeah.
So
I'm just hoping that somebody brings me some Mr. Scrub's pizza from Muskegon on Friday. I won't be hard to find. I'll be down at the press row. I'll even come to you and get it.
Yeah.
But I think Trey McKinney, as much as we've seen him explode, this is going to be his first time playing on the Breslin floor.
Yep.
And I expect you're going to have at least one game where he's at like 35. Right. And then another game where he's around 25. So I think he's going to put on a show just like he's been doing, and we'll see, where the chips lay.
All right, so let's get into our predictions as we close the show. In Division 1, UC.
St. Mary's.
Yeah, I'm going to go Muskegon.
Okay. In Division 2.
Ferndale.
Ooh.
Well, this is tough. I'm going to go with Romulus Summit Academy. I think that Mark White winds up getting it done.
Okay. All right. In Division 3.
E-course.
Yeah, see, I'm going to go Beecher because I think that Beecher is one of those things. Marquise Craig gets his state championship, and 2 years later he'll be on Izzo's staff.
And in Division 4.
I'm going with the MIAC. I played in the MIAC.
Okay.
Cardinal Mooney at that time was a small school, Division 4 school. I'm gonna ride with the Cardinal Mooney squad and the McAndrews squad and see them raise that first state championship.
And Frankfort and Tri-Unity might be the two best teams that are left. They have to play in the semifinals. So
And,
one of those
and I'm
is
going to take Frankfort.
Okay.
I think that so many times they've just ran across some buzzsaws of some teams, whether it be Powers, North Central, or whoever they're playing. But yes, I think that this will be Frankfort's year. They finally get over the hump, and hopefully we'll find out what, noon on Sunday.
Yep. All right, ladies
Saturday?
and gentlemen. Yeah, on Saturday the table is set. Semifinals take place Thursday and Friday, and of course the state finals will be there at the Breslin Center on Saturday all day. Lots going on, and we'll have a recap show, state champs at the state finals, that will talk about who the state champions are. We want to thank you so much for tuning in all season long. This has been great, guys.
A lot of fun.
We've had some great conversations and a lot of things covered over the course of the season. So I really want to thank both of these guys for their tireless efforts and everything that they put in and everything they do for high school basketball. Both of them been doing it for a long, long time and are very passionate about it.
This is a great year, a year that we'll remember. Definitely a year that doesn't go by without a lot of buzzwords or memorable moments.
Right, and we'll have more that we'll talk about once the state championship.
I think this next, let's see, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, it's going to be absolutely phenomenal, and it's going to be some of the best basketball that we've been able to see as far as for all four conferences in a while.
All right, so tune in, or we'll see you there. Bottom line is we'll be back next week, and we'll give you the state champs at the state finals program here to wrap up the 2022-2023 season. I'm Lorne Plant once again. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.
State Champs, Michigan's Hangtime is presented by Lawrence Technological University. Visit LTUathletics.com and recruit yourself. Hangtime is also brought to you by the Michigan High School Athletic Association, promoting the value and values of educational athletics. The Michigan Army National Guard, a proud partner of the MHSAA. The Detroit Athletic Club Foundation's Athlete of the Year Awards. Applications being accepted now through March 6, 2023 for the male and female high school Athletes of the Year. Check out previous winners and download the application today at dacathleteoftheyear.com. And the Basketball Coaches Association of Michigan. Find out more at bcam.org.